My name's John Everett. Before I get to the point I was going to make, one thing I did have a problem with early on was the repeated statement that elected representatives didn't have to do town halls. You are elected to represent us. As such, you're accountable to us. I think if representatives forget that they are answerable to the people, then that's kind of representative of the issue that we're having in Washington right now. So I would hope that we walk that back.
I would just make the observation. Not every representative does town halls. I believe this is part of my representational obligation to you, and I do town halls. I've done well over 100 during my tenure, and I will continue to do them. So,
once again,
take up your
citing the failures to represent other people.
Take up your issue with representatives you don't do.
That's not what we're talking about. But one thing I did want to talk about. I have a son. He has asthma. A couple of years ago, he almost died. When we were in the hospital, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong with it, the doctors would say, well, he has a breathing condition. And I kept asking, what does that mean? What does it mean that my son has a breathing condition that is vague? And they said, well, we'll get back to you. And eventually I found out before they said that he did have asthma, that they didn't want to write down that he had asthma, because once he did that, he had a pre-existing condition. And they didn't want that on him for the rest of their lives if it wasn't necessary. Last year, or a couple of years ago, you guys passed a bill, and it was supposed to be a tax reform act, but in that tax reform act, you put a poison pill in there. And that poison pill did away with the penalty for the individual mandate. And when you did that, what it actually did was kill Obamacare, because the reason Obamacare stood up in the courts was because the courts dictated that Congress had the right to levy taxes. Now, when you did that, you knew that there was going to be about 129 million who have pre-existing conditions, about 82 million have pre-existing conditions and aren't on Medicare or anything like that. You had 8 years to come up with a plan that would have saved people. You could have passed that first, but you wanted a partisan plan that would hurt people with pre-existing conditions. Now, I know that over the last 5 years, you've taken about $2 million from Big Pharma and health insurance and drugs. So my question is, when you voted to pass that bill, knowing that there was a condition in there that would hurt people with pre-existing conditions, did you think twice about the people that you might be risking their lives for, or were you just voting on a party line?
Well, there are protections for people with pre-existing conditions in their health.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you repeat that.
There are protections for people with pre-existing conditions.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you repeat
There
that.
are protections for people with pre-existing conditions.
There are right now. And once that's gone, it's gone.
No, in the American Health Care Act bill that you're referring to.
Right, but that is going to be gone because right now this is before the Fifth Circuit. It's before the Fifth Circuit, and Mitch McConnell and you guys are hoping that they don't overturn this, because if the Fifth Circuit, rules to overturn this, then next year you have to account for the fact that you cost 129 people with pre-existing conditions their protection. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I'll leave it to the next time.